We've had a missing person all winter. I just found her alive in Diamond Fort. A bit concerned about her health, honestly. Lack of food and water. Since late November of last year. The Utah County Sheriff's Office and search and rescue volunteers had been searching for a woman who'd seemingly vanished and left her things behind. More than 5 months, an entire winter, had passed. They came across the woman in a tent, alive. Hello friends, Steve Stockton here with you. So, when is a missing person not actually a missing person? Let me quote English author J.R.R. Tolkien, who once wrote that not all who wander are lost. By that same logic, then, one might correctly say that not all who have disappeared are truly missing. Not in every case, certainly. But this might be the answer to some disappearances. In recent news comes the story of a woman, unnamed as of yet, who went missing and stayed that way for over 5 months. On November 25th of 2020, her car was found in the parking area at the Dry Canyon Trailhead near Springville, Utah. The Dry Canyon Trail is a moderately busy out and back hiking route of about 10.5 miles, popular in good weather with day hikers. At first, Forestry Service employees just wanted to find the owner of the vehicle so they could let them know the seasonal gate closure was coming. After a week or so, though, they grew concerned something had happened to the woman, and the Park Service notified the Utah County Sheriff's Office. A search and rescue effort soon got underway. It included sheriff's deputies, several volunteers, and even a fixed-wing aircraft, but nothing turned up. Their extensive efforts failed to produce any clues about the vehicle owner's whereabouts. Speaking to a Salt Lake City News reporter, Sergeant Spencer Cannon of the Utah County Sheriff's Office had this to say: "We didn't have immediate reason to believe she was in danger. We just didn't know her status. All we had was her car in this parking lot, some personal items inside it, and a campsite up here, all of which appeared unused for a long time, with no evidence she was still around." The Sergeant Cannon went on to say that search and rescue teams searched the area multiple times over the winter, and a detective was even assigned to the case. He followed what few leads there were, including talking to some of her co-workers. That too led nowhere, as they claimed to have no idea about her plans. So she remained mysteriously missing without a clue until Sunday, May 2nd of 2021, when an unexpected discovery happened in the area. On that warm spring day, a sheriff's deputy and a drone pilot were doing flyover scans for any sign of the lost woman. They sent the drone up, and apparently on one of its first passes, it crashed. So they went up to look for the crashed drone. And in doing that, they came across another small campsite with a tent. Sergeant Cannon said that as they were looking at it, the tent zipper unzipped, and this woman, whom we'd identified back in November and December, sticks her head out. Around 3:00 p.m. that day, the deputy with the drone pilot called it in to dispatch. They had actually found the missing woman. "We've had a missing person all winter. I just found her alive in Diamond Fork. Kind of worried about her health condition, lack of food and water," he was reported to have said. The sheriff's department later stated that the woman, unsurprisingly, wasn't in great physical shape and had survived by rationing food that other campers had apparently given her back in the winter, as well as eating grass and moss she'd foraged from the area. For water, she used a nearby stream. Sergeant Cannon continued, "I have to be honest. We fully expected we wouldn't find anyone related to that alive up here, given how long it had been. In situations like that, we often find someone after they've passed away. We were quite relieved and happy that she was still alive." Now, the Utah County Sheriff's Office believes the woman wasn't lost at all, but chose to stay in the wilderness on purpose and didn't want to be found. Although, when hiker traffic picked up in the warmer months, she would have eventually been discovered. Our hats are off to her as a survivor. Whatever else is going on in her life, her ability to survive undoubtedly difficult circumstances is remarkable, said Sergeant Cannon. We want to be clear that while many people might choose not to live in the conditions this woman did, she broke no law. And in the future, she might choose to return to the same area. Survivor indeed. Even trained in woodlore and survival skills, I can't imagine such an undertaking. But it has been done, as this case proves. A similar case is Eric Rudolph, who, while a fugitive from the FBI, spent more than 5 years in the wilderness of the Nantahala National Forest, only to be caught during an early morning trip into a small town to forage in a grocery store dumpster. The sheriff's office went on to say that based on their initial questioning, they believe the woman may be the victim of some form of mental illness. However, and this is just my conjecture here, but with everything going on in November of last year, when she disappeared, or apparently chose to remove herself from society, the elections, civil unrest, the spread of disease and death, and the general uncertainty of our future, she may be far saner than most of us. After 17 days lost in the forest, a missing Oregon fisherman is finally found. 69-year-old Harry Burley's wife reported him missing Friday, May 7th, after he didn't return from a fishing trip. Search and rescue crews found 2 makeshift shelters while looking for him. On day 17, they called out his name, and he answered back. He was walking with minor pain, but otherwise okay. Burley was hoisted out and taken to a hospital. He's now recovering at home. In this video, we bring you the story of Harry Burley, the 69-year-old man who disappeared during a camping and fishing trip. We are thrilled to report he was miraculously found alive by search and rescue teams on Sunday, May 23rd, after spending 17 days lost in a forest near Toadie Falls in Idlewild Park, Oregon. Search and rescue teams had been looking for Harry Burley since May 7th, when his wife reported him missing after he failed to return home or check in during a fishing and camping trip near Toad Falls the night before. The Douglas County Sheriff's Office said in a Sunday news release that a team from Jackson County Search and Rescue came across a crude shelter around 3:00 p.m. and shouted out to Burley, who responded. The sheriff's office stated that Harry Burley was ambulatory and complained of some minor pain, but was in stable condition, as he was airlifted by helicopter to a local hospital for further evaluation. This was the outcome we've all been hoping for in this case. It's because of our determined search and rescue teams and the partnerships we have with other S&R teams from around the state that Harry Burley has been reunited with his family this evening, Sergeant Brad Odell said in a press release. The sheriff's office wants to thank everyone involved in this mission. Rescuers used a helicopter to take Burley out of the area and to a hospital, the announcement said. His wife, Stacy Burley, called it the best of news in a Facebook group called Roseburg Tracker, which outlined the search progress. I spoke to him on the phone, and he's coherent and emotional. Stacy Burley wrote, I'll be with him soon. Rescue workers had been searching for the Roseburg, Oregon man for more than 2 weeks. His car was spotted at the lower trailhead to Forest Service Trail 1500 on May 8th. And park officials said they believed Harry had initially planned to walk into the Twin Lakes area to fish, before packing up to go home 2 days earlier. The search continued into the following days, and on May 16th, searchers found a makeshift shelter with a tackle box identified as Harry's in the Calf Creek area. Though there was no sign of him at that shelter, the other shelter, which eventually led to his rescue, was found 1 week later. The Douglas County Sheriff's Office shared several photos from the search effort, including one of a hand, lettered cardboard sign they left taped to a railing next to a can of raisins, which read, "Harry, stay here. Look for food cache. Other side. Hello, friends." Today we're going to talk about an instance where a dead hiker saved a lost couple. 24-year-old Gina Allen and 28-year-old Brandon Day, both from Dallas, Texas, were in California for a financial convention, and they decided to go for a day hike on some trails just west of Palm Springs. The pair ended up lost when they strayed off the trails and couldn't find their way back. That's when their simple hike turned into a life or death ordeal. And what saved them is what makes this story not only special, but also quite bizarre, to say the least. When the couple first realized they were lost, Brandon said he wasn't too worried because he could still hear voices. So he figured there were people nearby, likely on the trails they were trying so hard to get back to. He kept thinking the trail would be just around the next boulder. But it never appeared, and they knew they had to do something. Night was closing in, and they hadn't prepared for more than a simple day hike. They didn't even have their cell phones, let alone food or extra clothing. Only light jackets. They were completely helpless and at the mercy of the woods. They went into a cave and spent the night freezing and scared, starving and terrified of what might come find them when they closed their eyes to sleep. If sleep would even come. They were so cold and afraid. The next morning, they decided to try something they'd learned somewhere at some point, and had somehow remembered. They started following a boulder-strewn path downhill, staying with a stream running alongside them. That night, they were frequently awakened, not by the animals they feared, but by their own shivering. Brandon said the mantra for the day was, "We're going to get out of here. We're not going to die. It's not our time." By the third day, Gina Allen was very weak and didn't know how much longer she could go on. She said she couldn't stop thinking the worst and that she was praying a lot. Eventually, they found a campsite in a dead-end gorge, but they decided to check if anyone was around. They found a foam sleeping mat, razors, a poncho thrown into some branches to make shade if needed, a spoon, tennis shoes, and a backpack. They were relieved and excited, thinking surely whoever owned this gear could lead them to safety. But that relief turned to fear when they realized the campsite was deserted. Among the items were a corroded flashlight and a broken radio. They soon discovered all the gear was soaking wet. No one was going to help them. They searched through the gear for more supplies and found identification belonging to a 60-year-old retired social worker from Virginia named John Donovan. The couple found a journal of sorts written on sketch paper and map backs, and realized John Donovan himself had been lost. He'd written these little notes. A man who'd lost all hope of getting out or being rescued, at least not alive. In John's backpack, Gina and Brandon found a warm sweater. She put it on immediately to stay warm and stop shivering. He found dry socks to help warm up. They even found dry matches to start a fire. They tried signaling a nearby helicopter with a small fire, but no one seemed to see it, and they remained stranded. But at least for now, thanks to John Donovan, they had hope and a few supplies. Brandon Day said of the journal, his last journal entry was 1 year to the day we found it, which was eerie. Nobody knew where he was. Nobody knew to come looking. So he was preparing for the end. We were reading the words of a man who was passing. The couple later learned more about the man who'd inadvertently saved them. John Donovan was an experienced hiker following the 250-mile Pacific Crest Trail, which runs from Southern California to the Canadian border. On May 2, 2005, when he vanished, conditions were icy, and he must have lost his way or become too injured to continue. The next day, They came to a large culvert covered with dried leaves, vines, and other foliage, with just one more of those matches from John Donovan's backpack. They lit up an acre or two of forest, creating a huge smoke signal that finally caught the attention of a helicopter crew, who rescued them. Miraculously, when taken to the nearest hospital, they only had minor bruises and some blisters. Brandon Day said, "We feel great. We're thankful. We feel like we've been given a second chance." Was it coincidence, fate, synchronicity, destiny that they found his supplies 1 year to the day of his last journal entry? We may never know. But it's always good to see something wonderful, like hope and the gift of continuing to live, come out of something so tragic as an experienced hiker losing his way and never being seen again. John Donovan was a social worker. He helped people. That was his life's work, to go out and help the disenfranchised and marginalized. And here he is, though most likely dead himself, still going out of his way to save a couple of inexperienced hikers, who would almost certainly have died without his sacrifice. Donovan's remains were eventually discovered by a 20-foot waterfall in a pool amid birches and mossy green rocks in May of 2006. Next, we bring you the story of a mother and son who got lost in the Colorado wilderness. Now, it's never a fun time when you're lost in the woods, no matter your age. The unknown and mysterious depths of the forest can turn even the most well-traveled tourist spots deadly, and your situation desperate really fast once you're off the main trails and marked paths. If you don't know where you are, how can you possibly know where you're going? Once that realization hits, it must be hard to suppress the rising fear and panic that sets in the moment you think, "I'm lost out here. Will anyone find me?" Usually, in these camping and hiking areas, cell service is completely unreliable and spotty even on the best days. Now imagine all that, and add being lost with one of your children. That's exactly what happened to a mother in Colorado and her 14-year-old son when they decided to go for a day hike on Thursday, August 5, 2021. It was a typical day for them, spending time outdoors, taking in the scenery and fresh air, getting in some activities before summer ended and autumn chill arrived. The pair had somehow gotten turned around and lost, ending up spending the entire night in the freezing cold, pitch-dark, predator-filled backcountry of the Flattops Wilderness area between Trafford's Lake and Stillwater Reservoir. Stillwater Reservoir is a scenic alpine lake southwest of Yampa, Colorado, sitting at 10,259 feet in northeast Garfield County. It offers excellent fishing, hiking, and camping in the surrounding White River and Routt National Forests. The unnamed mother and son were reported missing by the woman's husband and the boy's father when they failed to return home by 11:00 p.m. that night. The Garfield County Sheriff's Emergency Operations Division took the report and immediately began a full search and rescue operation to find them before it was too late. The husband went out himself to look for his wife and son and met 2 good Samaritans along the way. The 3 continued on foot together to try and locate his missing family. Garfield County Search and Rescue sent out an alert shortly after midnight for all available members to meet at the operations barn and rally at 5:00 a.m. Friday morning. The 2 had been missing nearly 24 hours by then, and the search was becoming desperate. Cell service in the area is very limited, but they were able to get a ping from one cell phone to help narrow down the hikers' approximate coordinates. The press release stated, "The Garfield County Sheriff's Office and Search and Rescue coordinated with the Routt County Sheriff's Office and their team to begin at dawn. Garfield County S&R deployed at Trappers Lake, while Routt County started a ground search farther east from Stillwater Reservoir. A care flight helicopter was requested to join and provide medical support, and transport once the hikers were located. The release stated it took about an hour and a half, but eventually around 7:30 a.m. that Friday, the father reported that he and the Good Samaritans had visual contact with the missing pair. The mother was severely dehydrated and quite hypothermic, but would make a full recovery. Luckily, the 14-year-old son had no injuries and was able to walk out to Stillwater Reservoir with his father and one of the Samaritans, completely unharmed. The other Good Samaritan, who'd been helping the father in his desperate search, twisted and injured his knee. He and the mother were taken by ground transport to a hospital about 2 hours away. As said, the mom was hypothermic and dehydrated, but would fully recover. All parties were safely reunited at Stillwater Reservoir. The release called this another successful mission for the volunteers of Garfield Search and Rescue. These volunteers are regularly called upon for various rescues, from water to climbing accidents, assisting lost or injured hikers, travelers, and outdoor enthusiasts in the backcountry. Luckily, this story has a happy ending. All involved, including those initially injured, made full recoveries and got home safely. All too often, though, that's not the case. The decisive action of the husband and the swift measures taken by search and rescue in Garfield County, Colorado, definitely contributed to this ideal outcome. Please, whether it's a day hike or a family camping trip, always carry a personal locator beacon. Always pack extra clothes, food, and water in case the unthinkable happens. All too often, these day hikes gone wrong don't end as fortunately, and people can even lose their lives. Thank you for listening, folks. We ask that you stay safe out there in our national parks. Look forward to your comments. Please keep them friendly and respectful. In the meantime, be good to yourselves and each other, and I'll see you a little farther on down the trail. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll talk to you next time.